everybody, Yankee here. I'm sure most of you by now are aware that the Hearing Protection Act is part of the H.R. 1 bill, the One Big Beautiful Bill, the Budget Reconciliation Bill that passed the House and is now in the Senate. I'm sure a lot of you also know that neither the Democrats nor the Republicans are all that happy with it in the Senate. Republicans for the reason that it adds $3 trillion to spending when it's supposed to be a budget cutting bill. And the Democrats right now are really upset about the Hearing Protection Act part. They do not want suppressors taken off the NFA. So there's been a lot of changes made to the bill so far. But luckily, it seems like the Republicans in the Senate, instead of trying to appease the Democrats, have just tried to make sure they don't lose any Republicans. Because they can pass it with just Republican votes. They just can't afford to lose very many Republicans, and if they do, they need to get some Democrats. So I was afraid they would take the Hearing Protection Act out to try to get a couple of Democrats, but it looks like they're going the way of just trying to keep all the Republicans on board. And hopefully that means they'll cut some of the pork out of the bill, some of the spending out of the bill, but also it means that not only have they left the Hearing Protection Act intact in the Senate version of the bill, they've expanded on it. They have now added short-barreled rifles and short-barreled shotguns to the Hearing Protection Act, meaning that those things would be removed from the NFA. Now, that would be great because that would mean suppressors or silencers, short-barreled rifles, short-barreled shotguns would no longer be part of the 1930s Act that made them, special super-duper dangerous to where you have to go through extra steps to get them and pay for a tax stamp. Now, a lot of people don't know what this means because they're like, does that just mean that we still have to do all the paperwork, we just don't got to pay for it? Does that mean that they're no longer regulated in a special way? What does it mean? If they're still in the law, does it matter that they're taken off the NFA list? Well, to be taken off the NFA list means that they're taken out of the law. They are actually editing the 1930s law that included them. They would no longer be included. They would still be listed in that law, but there'd be a new law that, took them off. Kind of like when they amended the Constitution to say no alcohol, and then they put it back to where, you can have alcohol again. The no alcohol is still in there. It's just superseded later. So that would be something awesome. I would definitely like that more than just silencers being taken off, because I would love to have a short-barrel shotgun. I would love to have short-barreled rifles that I didn't have to jump through hoops to get. So that would be great because these things would no longer be NFA items. They wouldn't be in the law. Meaning when you wanted to buy a short-barreled shotgun or a short-barreled rifle, it would be just like buying any other shotgun or rifle. That's what you'd be buying, a shotgun, a rifle. Wouldn't matter how long it is. All that nonsense would be over with. And as far as silencers or suppressors are concerned, well, that'd be like buying a sight or a new set of grips. That would just be an accessory. You wouldn't have to go through any background checks on that. Unless they create a law saying you still have to go through background checks on silencers or suppressors. If they're out of the 1930s law, well, then they're not a controlled item. They're not a firearm. And how many courts have already said they're not firearms? They're not arms? A lot of people in the gun community got upset when they're like, oh, no, they said suppressors aren't arms. They're not protected by the Second Amendment. Well, neither are scopes or anything like that. I just buy them. That's the way suppressors, silencers would be. Now, will some states go after them, try to make them illegal? They might try. Whether they'd be successful or not, there's some states that already do make them illegal. I think it's like 7, 8 states that make them illegal. And that might grow. But it'd be the same nasty states that are really bad for gun rights anyway that would do that. And most of those already ban them anyway. So it'd be a real big step into making suppressors readily available. And here's the thing. It'd be harder for states to ban them now. Because like if you lived in the state that banned suppressors and the state next to you didn't, you still couldn't get them because when you went over there, you had to fill out a background check and all this other stuff. And they'd be like, you don't live in this state. You can't have it. You live in a state where it's prohibited. If they were just an accessory, like if you were on vacation in Nevada and you decided, hey, I'm going to pick up some suppressors and take them home with me, nobody'd be the wiser. You wouldn't have to fill out any paperwork. No more so than you would now if you bought a scope in Nevada and took it back to California. So it'd be really hard for them to regulate them. It'd be almost impossible to prevent people from having them. And it'd be really hard to make it seem appropriate that there was any type of severe punishment for having them if they were just a common item in most places. It'd be real hard to sell to the general public in New Jersey that, hey, this item that you can just buy over the counter in Kentucky that has never really been involved in any major crimes and doesn't really hurt anybody and saves people's hearings. Well, if they have them here, we're going to put you in jail. It'd be kind of hard to sell that to people. It'd put another roadblock in their way. And like I said, it'd be almost impossible to keep people from having them. Now, with the short-barreled shotguns, short-barrel rifles, you still have to buy them. And some states will, as they already have. Some states will make them illegal. But it's an extra fight they'd have to make. And is it a fight they'd win? I don't know right now, the way the things are going. Now, in the future, yeah, they'd probably win those fights. Because as a community, we're not doing real good at growing our tent right now. We should be doing a lot better. Unfortunately, we're getting involved in too much divisive crap that has nothing to do with guns. But right now, I think they'd have a hard time selling it. So this is all good news. You know, I was fearing that the Hearing Protection Act would be taken out to try to get a couple of Democrats on board. But like I said already, to reiterate here, not only have they left the hearing protection in, but they added short-barreled shotguns and short-barreled rifles to the list of things that would be removed from the 1930s NFA, the National Firearms Act of 1930. These items would be taken off. They would either just be regular firearms now or just accessories, and that is amazing news. Let's just hope it stays that way as it passes the Senate, goes back to the House. Let's hope all that stays in there, because that would be a huge victory for the gun community. Hey everybody, Yankee here. Before we go, I just want to take a second to remind everyone that this channel is 100% viewer funded. We don't take a penny from advertisers, retailers. We don't take money from political organizations. There's no one telling me what I need to tell you. Everything that we do is done through the generosity of our viewers, either buying merchandise or becoming a patron or a Subscribe Star member. You're all the ones that support Pets and Vets and TYMP. And that's the reason I can stay true to myself and loyal only to the people who watch my channel. And I can spend my time talking about what I want to talk about, telling what I think needs to be said, and giving you my uncensored take on things I think you need to hear. So if you'd like to help keep things that way, please support the channel by becoming a patron, a Subscribe Star supporter, or just going over to my web store and buying some merch. The links are all in the upper corner of this video.